Welcome to the subject we're going to call priority management. Now, we call it priority management instead of time management because everyone's got the same amount of time each day, but we only really measure our time and manage our time based on our priorities. Now, when I say our priorities have got to align with the organization's priorities if we're going to be productive in our workplace. So what I want to cover in this short session is about looking at how to manage the tasks that come your way during the day, setting an appropriate priority to those tasks, whilst also attending to urgent tasks as they come up. I think this is something that we can all benefit from. So without any further ado, let's have a look at what I'm talking about when it comes to priority management. The concept of a priority matrix has been around for many, many years. In fact, I even refer to a version called Eisenhower's version, which is the end of World War II. The basic concept is to measure the impact versus the effort required, or put another way, the urgency versus the importance of that task. So let's start by defining what the difference between urgent and important really is. An important task is something that has consequences for you and the organization. An urgent task is something that needs to be done based on a timeline. In other words, it's urgent because it has to happen now or in the very near future. So how do we weigh these two things up? Urgent tasks are those that require immediate attention and cannot be postponed or delayed. They are often characterized by tight deadlines, potential consequences if not completed, or an immediate impact on others. Examples of urgent tasks could be responding to an emergency phone call, putting out a fire, or addressing a critical system failure. Important tasks are those that have a significant impact on achieving your goals, values, or priorities. They often contribute to long-term success, personal satisfaction, or well-being. Examples of important tasks could be preparing for a job interview, working on a strategic project, or spending time with family. It's possible for a task to be both urgent and important, but it's also possible for a task to be urgent without being important, or important without being urgent. For example, responding to an email from a friend asking for a quick favour could be urgent, but not necessarily important, while planning your next holiday could be important, but not necessarily urgent. It's important to manage your tasks effectively by prioritising the ones that are both urgent and important, and ensuring that you have time and resources to address them. So let's look at a real example, one that just happened to me. I was working away on a task that was important to me at the time, and I had an email from a facilitator saying that I'm trying to mark these assessments. I'm halfway through, but 2 of them need to be converted into a file that she could read. It was in an Apple format, needed to be converted into a Microsoft format. Now, I knew I could do this, and I could do it quite quickly. So it went from being an important task to an urgent task. But as far as my time management went, I thought, well, this is only going to take me a minute. So was it worth taking my time out to do that and then get back to that facilitator with those so she could continue on with her marking? The answer in this case was yes, because I knew it wasn't going to take too much time out of my flow of what I was currently doing. Now, if we expand that and say, oh, look, there's a student that's got 1,500 files that need to be converted, different story. Then you need to prioritize that and get back to that person and say, I can do this, however, it won't be until, let's say it's an hour from now or 2 hours from now. Now, that will disrupt their workflow. And this is where the term urgent comes in. Urgent is a personal opinion based on the requirements of your particular, that person's particular circumstances. So what's urgent to someone else isn't necessarily urgent to you. So if you're already doing something that's important and something urgent comes in, if it's something you think you can deal with very quickly and move past that, make their life easier, and then continue on with what your tasks were, then great. That's why we call it priority management. You prioritize that in your mind. You don't necessarily have to write it down and make a note and say, this is what I've got to do now, because that'll just take up more of your time. So deal with it if it's urgent and you can deal with it quickly. If, however, it's both urgent and important, then you might feel the need to postpone what you're currently doing and putting your time into that particular issue, whatever it might be. So that's just one example. So what tools do we have to help us prioritize our normal daily tasks and then still leave room for those urgent tasks that we may be able to prioritize if the need arises? In Microsoft Outlook, we have a way of actually going into Outlook and arranging our tasks. Simply go into Outlook, on the left-hand side, there's a thing called Tasks, select that, and then you'll see this menu. So you can add tasks for that particular day. These are things that are already scheduled. Let's say you've got task 1, task 2, and task 3. Now, the rule of thumb is that the scheduled tasks that you have to complete in a day should take up between 50 and 60% of your day. Anything else is what they call ad hoc or urgent tasks. Now, do you need to add the ad hoc or urgent tasks into your task list? The answer is not necessarily. Firstly, you should have already prioritized your tasks by clicking on the star and potentially adding a date or time that that task needed to be completed. So if any task turns up that might be urgent or is ad hoc and can be fitted within your schedule, you can add that to your list or simply do the task and come back to your list. So once we've got our tasks in place and we've placed some sort of priority on them, whether they are urgent, important, or somewhere in the middle, what do we do if an urgent task is suddenly allocated to you? Well, as we've covered, if an urgent task is allocated to you, you've got to summarize very quickly in your head whether you can allocate that within the current task schedule you've got or you need to postpone it. Remember, an urgent task is urgent for the person who submitted the task to you, not necessarily for you, as long as you have urgent or important tasks that also need to be completed. So what I would say, if I'm suddenly faced with an urgent task and I have a set of important tasks that need to be completed in a certain time, what I will do is I'll allocate some time to that in the very near future. Even if it's a case of switching between tasks to give yourself that break from maybe the one you're working on so you can go back and work on this brand new urgent task or important task that has come through. If a non-urgent but important task is allocated to me, what will I do? Now, briefly speaking, if something is not urgent, the things we should do with it are we can either allocate it to somebody else to do, or we can put it into our schedule for the following day or few days. So a non-urgent but important task should immediately be scheduled. Go into your task list, add it to your task list, add a due by date, and then you know exactly when that task will be completed. And if anybody ever asks you, you can refer back to that and say it will be completed by. What if a non-urgent and unimportant task comes your way? Now, this is interesting because it depends on your role within the organization. If a non-urgent and unimportant task comes your way, then can you delegate that to somebody else? Can you put it off or can you ignore it altogether? These are the questions you need to ask yourself. If it's not urgent and it's not important to your task, is it something you can schedule way into the future? This is really important when you come back to looking at what your day is going to comprise of. If you can actually put that particular task into your schedule for a day in the future when things are not so urgent, then that is the ideal. So just refer now to the worksheet that comes with this video just to go through the things we've talked about so far. Feel free to use today's tasks and list them on the worksheet and assign them a priority based on their importance. Then go through and answer the questions about what you would do with urgent, non-urgent, important and non-important tasks. So in summary, what we've looked at so far is the priority matrix and how to apply it to your normal workplace tasks. We've also looked at how to deal with those urgent and maybe ad hoc tasks that come your way during the day. Just applying these very simple skills and doing the mental mathematics to say whether something's urgent or important or both, will help you prioritize the things that are important to your day and allow you to achieve a lot more from one single day. So good luck with this, and we'll see you around.